My name is Lucy. I'm 24 years old and I just bought my first house after supporting myself since 16. Through countless double shifts and skipped vacations, I built my future brick by brick. That dream turned into a nightmare when my own mother stood in my backyard and screamed that I'd stolen my brother's future. But nothing could have prepared me for the legal papers that arrived a week later. My parents were actually suing me for my own hard-earned home. If you're watching this and have ever had family try to take credit for your success, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit like and subscribe because what happened next proves that sometimes the best proves that primes and a revenge is simply living well. I grew up in Millfield, one of those small Midwest towns where everyone knows your business before you do. My family looked normal from the outside. Typical middle-class life with Dad Thomas working as an accountant at the local firm and Mom Diane running the household with an iron grip and expensive taste. But inside those walls, the dynamic was crystal clear from my earliest memories. My younger brother Kevin was the golden child and I was the afterthought. Every achievement I had was measured against what Kevin might someday accomplish. I brought home straight as that's nice, but did you see how Kevin scored the winning goal at his soccer game? I won the science fair. Kevin got invited to a birthday party at the mayor's house. The pattern was relentless and exhausting. I remember sitting at our kitchen table in 10th grade, nervously asking my parents if they could help with $300 for a school trip to Washington, D.C. My history teacher had specifically recommended me for this honors program. The silence that followed still echoes in my memory. We're saving for Kevin's future, my father finally said, not even looking up from his newspaper. College isn't going to pay for itself. And he has real potential. What about my future? I asked quietly. My mother sighed as if I was being particularly difficult. Lucy, you know your brother has special opportunities ahead. You're smart enough to figure something out for yourself. That night, I cried into my pillow. But by morning, a determination had crystallized inside me. If my future wasn't worth investing in, I'd build it myself without taking a single cent from them ever again. The next day after school, I walked into every business in our small downtown area. By sunset, I had a job waiting tables at Darlene's diner starting that weekend. Darlene herself hired me, a tough but fair woman who became one of the first adults to actually see my potential. Those first few months were brutal. I'd go straight from school to the diner, work until closing, then stay up late finishing homework. My grades dipped slightly at first, which my parents immediately pointed out, but I adjusted my schedule, cutting out any social life to maintain my academic standing while working nearly 30 hours a week. On my 16th birthday, instead of asking for presents, I went to the local credit union and opened my first bank account without my parents. The teller looked surprised when I insisted no parental names be added, but something in my expression must have communicated my seriousness. Making my own money changed everything. The first time I counted $1,000 in my savings, I sat on my bed just staring at the bank statement in disbelief. This was mine. I had earned every penny. The pride I felt was something my parents had never given me. This unnecessary stubbornness is getting old, Lucy. My mother commented when I started buying my own clothes, school supplies, and personal items. We're your parents. This is what we're supposed to do. You made it clear where the family resources need to go, I replied calmly. I'm respecting your decision. That answer infuriated her, but what could she say that she was angry I wasn't being a financial burden? At the diner, one of our regular customers was Mr. Patterson, a retired financial advisor who always left generous tips. He noticed me reading a library book about personal finance during a slow shift and started sharing wisdom about investing, saving, and building credit. These lunch counter lessons were more valuable than anything I learned in school. Most people your age think about how to spend money. He told me you're already thinking about how to grow it. That mindset is your biggest asset. By senior year, I was working 30-hour weeks while maintaining a 3.8 gigapascals. I learned to function on 6 hours of sleep and became an expert at maximizing every minute of my day. When graduation came, I had nearly $10,000 saved and a partial scholarship to State University, enough to make my college dreams possible if I continued working. The joint graduation party my parents threw still stings when I think about it. It was supposedly for both me and Kevin, who was finishing junior year with merely passing grades. Yet, the celebration featured a slideshow of mostly Kevin's achievements with my graduation as a seeming afterthought. The cake even read, "Congratulations, Lucy and future star Kevin." I smiled through it all, knowing that my bank account represented freedom they couldn't take away. State University wasn't my dream school, but with my partial academic scholarship, and in state tuition, it was financially feasible. I had calculated exactly how much I needed to earn to cover the remaining tuition, books, housing, and food. My detailed spreadsheets would have impressed any accountant, including my father, though he never asked to see them. During orientation week, while other freshmen were partying and decorating dorm rooms, I was applying for jobs. I kept my position at Darlene's on weekends, making the 2-hour drive back to Millfield every Friday night. By the second week of classes, I had secured a position at the campus library that worked around my course schedule. My housing situation wasn't ideal. A 5-bedroom dorm house, shared with 6 other students, but at $350 a month, including utilities, it was the most economical option. I took the converted sunroom, which lacked privacy, but had the lowest rent. The first winter was brutally cold with the drafty windows, but I bought thermal curtains from a thrift store and wore layers to bed. Meanwhile, Kevin started his senior year of high school with a brand new car my parents gifted him to help with college applications. The irony wasn't lost on me as I waited at bus stops in the rain. My college social life consisted almost entirely of friendships formed with other working students. We understood each other's reality, covering shifts when someone had an exam, sharing textbooks to save money, and celebrating small victories like finding free food at campus events. Lisa from my statistics class became my closest friend after we bonded over both working 2 jobs while carrying full course loads. "Some people party through college," she said once, "but we're building something. I can feel it." The contrast between my college experience and Kevin's became impossible to ignore. Once he started at Westfield University, a private college with a hefty tuition that my parents somehow afforded. His social media showed fraternity parties, spring break trips, and not a single part-time job. Every time I called home, which became increasingly rare, my mother would gush about Kevin's connections with prominent alumni and his position on the lacrosse team. "Have you joined any clubs, Lucy?" she would ask, as if my 60-hour weeks between work and school left room for extracurriculars. It was during my sophomore year that I discovered my passion for real estate through an urban economics class. Professor Jenkins, a former developer who had entered academia after a successful career, noticed my enthusiasm and became a mentor. She stayed after Class to answer my endless questions about property values, development trends, and investment strategies. Most students see real estate as building, she told me. You see the mathematical patterns and human stories behind them. That's rare. With Professor Jenkins' encouragement, I added extra courses during summer terms, working full-time at a local property management company while taking classes. The exhaustion was sometimes overwhelming. There were nights I cried from pure fatigue, questioning if this path was worth the sacrifice. But the alternative, being financially dependent on parents who clearly favored my brother, seemed far worse. Holiday visits home grew increasingly strained. Thanksgiving of my junior year, I listened to 20 minutes of Kevin's adventures at a Westfield alumni networking event before anyone asked about my studies or work. When I mentioned my internship offer from Horizon Really, a respected firm in the capital city, my mother simply nodded and changed the subject back to Kevin's lacrosse scholarship. The Christmas that year was particularly painful. Under the tree sat several large boxes for Kevin containing expensive electronics, designer clothes, and even ski equipment for a trip my parents had planned for him. My gift was a generic sweater still with the clearance tag partially visible, where someone had tried to peel it off. I wore it with a smile and focused on getting through the day. That spring I secured a prestigious internship at Horizon Really, working under Terry Maxwell, one of the top agents in the state. The position paid well enough that I could reduce my library hours slightly, giving me just enough breathing room to maintain my GPA. Terry taught me the practical side of real estate that complemented my academic knowledge, from negotiation tactics to property assessment. It was Terry who first told me about first-time home buyer programs that helped people with good credit but limited down payments achieve home ownership. After a long discussion about my financial situation, she looked me straight in the eyes. Set a goal. Date, she said firmly. With your savings rate and career trajectory, you could own property by 25 if you're strategic. I set the goal for 25, but privately decided to aim for 24. Every decision I made from that point forward was evaluated against this objective. Spring break trips replaced by overtime shifts. New clothes substituted with thrift store finds. Dining out traded for meal prepping in bulk. When graduation approached, I felt both pride and resignation, knowing my parents would likely miss it. Sure enough, 2 weeks before the ceremony, my mother called to explain they couldn't make it because Kevin had a lacrosse tournament that could be scouted by professional teams. I accepted their excuse with practiced graciousness, while Lisa and my other friends stepped in to celebrate with me. What my parents didn't know, because they never asked, was that I graduated with a business degree, minor in finance with minimal student loans, and had already accepted a full-time position at Horizon Really, starting immediately after graduation. As I moved the tassel on my cap from right to left, I wasn't just completing my education. I was stepping fully into a self-made future they had never imagined for me. My position at Horizon Really started as an assistant to Terry Maxwell, but her mentorship fast-tracked my progress. While other new graduates were still learning professional basics, I was already familiar with the systems, clients, and procedures from my internship. 6 months in, I passed my real estate license exam and began taking on my own clients under Terry's supervision. Homeownership remained my fixed goal. I rented a studio apartment that was barely 400 square ft with a kitchenette so small I could touch both walls simultaneously. The building had maintenance issues and noisy neighbors, but the rent was $500 below market rate, allowing me to save the difference each month. My furniture consisted of a futon that doubled as my Bed, a desk I found on the curb, and 2 folding chairs. My mother would have been horrified at the minimalism, but every dollar saved brought me closer to my goal. To accelerate my savings, I started a side hustle helping graduate students and young professionals find apartments. While I couldn't collect commissions on rentals as a new agent without bringing them through Horizon, I could charge apartment search consultation fees for creating customized lists of options matching their criteria. Word of mouth kept me busy on evenings and weekends. "You're working too hard," Terry commented one day after finding me at the office at 8:00 p.m. "I admire your drive, but don't burn out before you hit your prime." I appreciated her concern, but explained my home ownership goal. Instead of trying to dissuade me, she introduced me to Sandra Wilson, a senior agent who specialized in investment properties and wealth building. Sandra became my second mentor, teaching me about building equity property appreciation patterns and how to identify undervalued homes with potential. She had started with nothing in her 20s and now owned 12 income-producing properties by age 50. The secret, Sandra told me, isn't just finding clients, it's becoming your own best client first. With every commission check, I increased my savings, watching my down payment fund grow month by month. I researched first-time home buyer programs, obsessively comparing interest rates, down payment assistance options, and qualifying criteria. By 6 months ahead of schedule, I had saved enough for a modest down payment, plus closing costs and emergency reserves. The house hunting process began with absolute clarity about my parameters. I needed a structurally sound property with cosmetic issues that would lower the price, but could be improved gradually. Location was crucial. A neighborhood stable enough for appreciation, but not so established that prices were inflated. After touring 27 houses, I found it a 1,960s 3-bedroom ranch with good bones, but dated everything else. The avocado green kitchen, pink bathroom tile, and wood paneling had scared off other buyers. But I saw past the cosmetic issues to the solid foundation, new roof, and spacious yard. Most importantly, it was in an area showing early signs of revitalization with new businesses opening nearby. The asking price was at the top of my budget, but armed with market research and comparable sales data, I submitted an offer 12% below asking. After a brief negotiation, we settled at 7% below, contingent on inspection. The sellers were an elderly couple moving to a retirement community who appreciated my letter explaining my journey to home ownership. The day I signed the closing documents, just 2 months after my 24th birthday, I sat in the title company office, fighting back tears. The agent handling the paperwork assumed I was nervous. "Don't worry," she said kindly. "The first house is always scary, but you're making a great investment." "I'm not worried," I replied. "I'm just proud." Moving in was a simple process given my minimal possessions. The house echoed with emptiness those first few weeks, but gradually I began filling it with carefully selected second-hand furniture. Every Saturday became project day as I taught myself to paint, replace light fixtures, and refinish cabinets, using YouTube tutorials and workshops at the local hardware store. My parents knew I had moved because I'd mentioned it briefly during one of our infrequent phone calls, but they had never asked for my address. Still, occasionally I would spot my mother's car driving slowly past the house. She never stopped to visit, and I never mentioned noticing her drive-abys. Kevin, now a college senior, occasionally texted asking for Small loans that I politely declined. His messages never included questions about my life or career. As the months passed, the house transformed. The avocado kitchen became a modern white and gray space. The pink bathroom turned into a spa-like retreat with simple updates. Each change built both the property's value and my sense of accomplishment. Real estate colleagues who visited were impressed by the increasing equity I was creating through sweat equity alone. After nearly a year of ownership and significant improvements, I decided to host a barbecue to celebrate both the anniversary and the completion of my backyard landscaping project. Despite my reservations, I invited my parents and Kevin along with extended family, friends, and colleagues who had supported my journey. "Are you sure about inviting your parents?" Lisa asked, when helping me plan. "You've created this beautiful life without them." "They're still family," I said. "And maybe seeing what I've accomplished will change something." As the day of the barbecue approached, I threw myself into preparations. The house was immaculate. The new patio furniture arranged perfectly, and the menu planned to impress without appearing too extravagant. Part of me hoped my parents would finally see me really see what I had accomplished on my own. Another part braced for their indifference. Nothing could have prepared me for what actually happened. The morning of the barbecue dawned sunny and warm, perfect weather for an outdoor gathering. I had been up since 6:00 a.m., marinating meats, preparing side dishes, and arranging flowers from my newly planted garden. The house had never looked better, with every renovation project complete and personal touches that made it distinctly mine. My anxiety built as the clock ticked toward the 2 p.m. start time. Lisa arrived an hour early to help with final preparations, her steady presence calming my nerves. "Whatever happens with your family today," she said while arranging a veggie platter, "remember that this is your victory lap. You did this, Lucy. All of it." My Aunt Judy and Uncle Mark arrived next, bearing a housewarming gift of quality tools for the homeowner who can fix anything, as Uncle Mark put it, with genuine pride in his voice. They had always treated me with the same affection. They showed Kevin one of the few balanced relationships in our extended family. By 2:30, most guests had arrived except my immediate family. Colleagues from Horizon mingled with my friends, everyone admiring the transformation of the property. Sandra Wilson, my mentor, pulled me aside with a champagne toast to smart investments and a bright future, she said, clinking glasses with me. "I've been in this business 30 years, and I've rarely seen someone your age with such clarity of purpose." At 3:15, just as I was beginning to think they wouldn't show my parents' luxury SUV, pulled into the driveway with Kevin in the back seat. My mother emerged first, surveying the gathering with the tight smile she reserved for situations she found beneath her standards. My father followed, carrying a small gift bag that looked hastily assembled. Kevin sauntered out last, immediately heading toward the food table without greeting anyone. "Lucy, my mother," he air-kissed near my cheeks. "The neighborhood is certainly developing." I had to check the address. "It's in Yupan Cominging area," I replied evenly. "Property values have increased 12% just since I bought in." Was her only response as she stepped into the house, immediately scanning for flaws. My father handed me the gift bag with an awkward pat on the shoulder. "Congratulations on the house. It's a cute starter place." Inside the bag was a generic scented candle with the price sticker still attached. I thanked him politely and invited them to explore the house and meet my friends and colleagues. As I gave them a tour, pointing out the improvements I'd made. My mother's comments were a steady stream of backhanded compliments. You painted these cabinets yourself. I suppose that's one way to save money. This bathroom is creative considering the budget constraints. The spare bedroom would make a nice nursery someday, though. I suppose you're too focused on work for that sort of thing. I maintained my composure, years of practice, allowing her words to roll off more easily than they once had. What I couldn't ignore, however, was overhearing my father talking to my Uncle Mark near the grill. Kevin's graduation is coming up next month. He was saying, we're figuring out his next steps. He's considering taking some time to find himself before committing to a career path. Where will he live during this finding himself period? Uncle Mark asked, a hint of judgment in his tone. We always planned for him to move into a family property after college, my father replied vaguely. Get his footing before facing the real world. This comment confused me deeply. My parents didn't own any investment properties. We had always lived in the same house, and they had never mentioned purchasing another. What family property could he possibly mean? The barbecue portion of the gathering commenced with everyone filling plates and finding seats around the yard. The atmosphere was pleasant, despite the undercurrent of tension from my immediate family. Kevin had already helped himself to 3 beers from the cooler and was loudly telling college stories to anyone who would listen. After everyone had eaten, I clinked my glass to make a toast, thanking everyone for celebrating this milestone with me. A year ago, I got the keys to this house, I said. Many people thought it was too ambitious for someone my age, but everyone here supported my vision in some way. This home represents not just a financial investment, but a belief that with hard work and determination, we can create the life we want, regardless of where we start. Most guests raised their glasses in response, with murmurs of here, and well said. But my mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping harshly against the patio. You stole your brother's future, she shouted, pointing directly at me, her face flushed with what appeared to be genuine rage. The yard fell into shocked silence. Even the neighborhood birds seemed to stop chirping. Mom, I managed to say, completely blindsided, what are you talking about? This house, she continued, voice shaking. This neighborhood. We've been watching this area for years, planning for Kevin's future. You knew that. You must have known that with your real estate connections. My father stood beside her, nodding. We were waiting for Kevin to finish college before helping him buy his first property. You swooped in with your insider knowledge and took the opportunity we were saving for him. I looked from them to Kevin, who was smirking slightly behind them. Then back to my parents, trying to process this bizarre accusation. That's absolutely not true, I finally said. I found this house through my own research. You've never once mentioned any interest in this neighborhood or buying property for Kevin. We shouldn't have had to mention it, my mother snapped. A beautiful daughter would have consulted with family before making such a selfish move. Kevin stepped forward, then swaying slightly from the alcohol. Yes, sis. As the son, I should have had first shot at property. It's like traditional. The absurdity of the situation might have been comical if it weren't so hurtful. These people had never contributed $1 to my education, never helped with housing, never even co-expressed interest in my career in real estate. Now they were claiming I had somehow stolen an opportunity that was never discussed with me. I think you should leave, I said quietly but firmly. All of You're choosing this house over your family, my mother gasped dramatically. No, I'm choosing my dignity over your revisionist history, I replied. Please go. As they gathered their things amid uncomfortable glances from other guests, my Aunt Judy approached my mother with fire in her eyes. Diane, I've held my tongue for years watching how you treat Lucy, she said loud enough for others to hear. But this is beyond the pale. That girl has worked herself to the bone while you've handed everything to Kevin. You should be ashamed. My mother huffed indignantly, but offered no rebuttal as they left. The remaining guests rallied around me, helping clean up while expressing their shock at what they'd witnessed. Family dynamics are complicated, Sandra said gently as the last guests were leaving. But what I saw today wasn't complicated. It was clear-cut emotional manipulation. Don't let it diminish what you've accomplished. After everyone left, I sat alone on my patio, replaying the bizarre confrontation. Had I somehow missed conversations about my parents' investment plans? Was there any truth to their accusation? Deep reflection yielded nothing. This was a narrative they had created to justify their continued favoritism toward Kevin now that my success was undeniable and visible. What I couldn't have imagined then was that this public confrontation was just the opening act in a drama that would become far more formal, far more absurd, and ultimately far more liberating than I could have possibly anticipated. The week following the barbecue, I threw myself into work trying to process the bizarre confrontation with my family. Several clients commented on my distraction during showings, but I blamed it on seasonal allergies rather than explain the truth. Wednesday afternoon, I was in the office preparing documents for a closing when the receptionist called me to the front desk. A stern-faced man in a rumpled suit stood waiting a manila envelope in hand. Lucy Montgomery, he asked flatly. Yes, that's me, I replied. You've been served, he stated, thrusting the envelope into my hands before turning to leave. Several colleagues witnessed the exchange, their expressions ranging from concern to curiosity. With burning cheeks, I retreated to a private conference room to examine the contents. The legal document inside was almost incomprehensible at first glance. My own parents, Thomas and Diane Montgomery, were suing me, their daughter. The allegations were so outlandish, I had to read them 3 times to believe what I was seeing. Count 1, unjust enrichment through exploitation of familial knowledge. Count 2, intentional interference with expected inheritance. Count 3, misappropriation of family opportunity. The complaint alleged that I had deliberately and maliciously used my real estate knowledge to intercept a property investment opportunity rightfully intended for plaintiff's son Kevin Montgomery. It further claimed that I had accessed family connections and resources to secure my position in the real estate industry, thereby owing financial consideration to my parents. The most shocking part came in the relief sought section. My parents were demanding either 1. The forced sale of my home with all proceeds to be given to Kevin, or 2. A payment of $200,000 to equalize family resources and compensate for lost opportunity. My hands shook as I read the signature line where both my parents had signed their names to this fictional account of reality. I maintained my composure just long enough to tell my manager I needed the rest of the day off due to a family emergency. In my car in the office parking garage, I finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably until my throat hurt and my eyes burned. When the initial shock subsided enough for coherent thought, I called the only person I knew would understand the family dynamics at play. My Aunt Judy, my mother's sister. They did what she exclaimed after I explained the situation. Lucy, this is beyond dysfunctional. This is delusional. I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice small. I can't afford an extended legal battle. What if I lose my house? You listen to me, Aunt Judy said firmly.